Special thanks to Celestia for supporting my channel at patreon.com/Christopher164. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Alright, let me talk about, obviously, album of the decade. This is going to be very interesting. I feel like it'll be very also interesting, first off, to kind of just tell you what I've kind of been through musically throughout the past, basically 5 years, really. Because it wasn't really until like 2014 or 15 that I really started getting into music. Now, it's not that I never liked music, but it's not like with such a passion that I had been like, oh, new music, new releases, let me listen to this, let me listen to that. When I was younger, I was pretty familiar with music that released from like 2006 to 2009, but then due to family circumstances, I wasn't really aware of like new releases. We kind of just stuck to our library for the longest time. Then as I got older, my dad allowed me to listen to some of his library. So I started digging through Apologetics. I was familiar with quite a few of their songs already, but he let me listen to more. And so albums like Music Is As Music Does and Play Nice, both of which released in 2015, are some of my favorite Apologetics albums, especially that released in this decade. Some very solid songs, really enjoyed going through that. And also I started getting into bands like Guardian and Stryper. Like, I purchased Guardian's new album from 2014, Almost Home, and Stryper's new album, Fallen, which released in 2015. Guardian was definitely more 90s. Stryper, known for 80s, but I mean, they're still rocking today. And that's not the last time I'm mentioning Stryper. But then my mom started to kind of like discover what we've been missing out in music. And so we bought quite a few Newsboys albums, one of my favorites, Restart, and then I rediscovered Britt Nicole because I knew her song Set the World on Fire from like 2009, and rediscovered her after watching the terrible movie Soul Surfer. And her song Set the World on Fire was in the end credits, and I'm like, wait, I know this song. And I kind of looked into it further and then found out who this Britt Nicole person was, and her album Gold is, I think, still is a pretty decent record, my opinion. But then I started to explore the more modern rock side. I've been very invested with classic rock, like I said, like Stryper. And so I started to discover bands like Skillet, and I really enjoyed their album Unleashed. I discovered Skillet around the time that album released. And also Fireflight, and their album For Those Who Wait was a very important album when I discovered it in like late 2016. It really helped me. Some songs I still go back to. Can't say it's my all-time favorite. It means a lot to me for sure. Let me just run down through a couple of these years, just a couple of my top albums, and then I will tell you what is my favorite album of this decade. In 2016, we had solid releases from Michael Sweet, his album One Side War, and Lacey Stern, former frontwoman of Flyleaf, with her album Life Screams. Really enjoyed those albums when they released. It's almost like a stark contrast of like that classic rock and modern rock, but that kind of just shows my taste. I kind of lean more to the classic rock or metal, but I still have a solid appreciation for what's modern, especially like there's more modern stuff releasing than classic stuff. Duh. And then in 2017, Mandisa's album Out of the Dark released, and I thought that was a very solid project. And then also Lecrae's All Things Work Together, I still think is one of Lecrae's best albums, just very deep. And I feel like many rap albums are kind of braggy or whatever. This album was just very honest and just very heartfelt, and I really appreciated that. 2018, we had Stryper's album God and Evil, and that is one of my most replayed albums of all time. I love that album almost to death. There are a couple songs that I could do without. I still go back to that album all the time. But also Andrew Peterson's Resurrection Letters Volume 1 released, and that is a very solid project. We don't have a lot of albums releasing today that are very biblically grounded, especially in the quote CCM pop world. Most of those songs are just like Christian thoughts or Christian wishes, or this Christian utopia. The Andrew Peterson Resurrection Letters album was very, very solidly based on scripture and Bible stories, which is kind of what I'm kind of used to from a lot of apologetic songs. But it was just very refreshing, and there's just not a lot of music like that. In 2019, a couple of my most replayed albums was NF's album The Search, and also Disciples' album Love Letter Kill Shot. So yeah, those are just a couple albums that I've really enjoyed over the past couple of years that have a lot of replay value, especially when it comes to the Stryper and NF albums. Alright, let me tell you what the album of the decade is for me. And I think I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but honestly, in the end, I don't care because this is my opinion. And I love this album, honestly. It means a lot to me. In my opinion, the album of the decade, or the album that impacted me the most, that released this past decade, is Gone by the band Red. I think I discovered Red late 2016. Honestly, that's kind of false because I was aware of them for a while, honestly. I think even since from when they started. But then in like early February of 2016 ish, I entered in a giveaway of Red's album End of Silence, the 10th anniversary edition. And I didn't know I won it until like December. And around December, I got that album. It took forever to get that thing, but I got it. And that was also the first time I saw them live. I wasn't necessarily a fan at that time, so I didn't necessarily enjoy the show. But it was a short one, whatever. It was at a festival at Liberty University, which is now inactive. I started to collect their albums, and when their album Gone released, I was super excited. And when I found out that the release date would be on my birthday, I got even more excited. So I basically treated myself to an early birthday present to get the physical album and the shirt, and no regrets, honestly. It was when pledge music was still a thing. Now it's not. But I remember waking up on my birthday early in the morning, surprisingly. Looked at pledge music, and the album wasn't officially released there yet. So at that time, I had like $100 gift card or whatever, a Visa gift card. And so I got myself the 3-month trial of Apple Music, and I listened through Gone, at least most of it, in my bed before I had to get up and out and proceed with my day. And that was just something. And I listened to that album several times that day. On Pledge Music, it didn't come out for us fans till like 10:30, but even so, the deluxe tracks didn't come on till like 1. To some degree, it wasn't necessarily the band's fault, it was more like their management, but it was during my first semester at Liberty University, and it was tough because I'd lived overseas in Korea for the longest time. Didn't have a lot of friends. I started a blog and made online friends and moved to America, and we started attending church. And honestly, their youth group wasn't the greatest. I wasn't very well accepted, and I felt very much kind of alone. And I started going to Liberty University, and I was a commuter, still am, honestly. And so I didn't necessarily have that college experience, so I didn't really interact with a lot of people. I didn't know how. It just wasn't part of my social skills at all, and it just wasn't the life I lived. I was just very used to being alone, and I just didn't know it at the time, but I felt very lonely because I saw everyone else hanging out together, and I didn't know what it meant to necessarily have friends, really. And this album, my gosh, I listened to this album on repeat. I remember doing math homework in the, what is it called? The Math Emporium at Liberty University, which is gone, praise the Lord. But just this album, like low volume, I would just listen to this album on repeat and getting my math homework done. I was trying to do my English paper. I had this album on very low volume on repeat. Most anytime I got the chance, I listened to this album over and over and over and over again. It's still probably one of my favorite albums to listen to, just like in the background, kind of like ambience, but in a good way. I haven't done it a lot recently, but at the same time, this album just still means so much to me. And like you'll argue with me, this is not Red's best album, and you can argue that from a lot of different perspectives, right? A lot of people love A Beauty and Rage because it's very cinematic and just thematic also, you know. I know a lot of people love and appreciate that album, but this one means more to me, honestly, than pretty much any other Red album. That's a lie, actually, until early 2019 when I finally picked up and listened to Innocence and Instinct, and that I will have to say is my favorite album of the century. That album I can't get enough of, honestly. So actually I like that album better. But for this decade, Gone has just meant a lot to me. I remember one of the very first standout tracks was AI. I was very aware, and still am, of the dangers of AI and modern technology and just rushing it. So just hearing AI in the singularity just really stuck out to me. But also AI just kind of stood out to me on a personal level. It it just lyrically just hits you, and musically is like off the charts. The ending just blew me away. Just how cinematic and beautiful it is. It kind of reminded me a bit of like Wally. Oh my gosh, AI is beautiful. One of my favorite Red songs of all time. I know I've probably overplayed it for myself, but it's incredible. Fracture wasn't one of my favorite songs from the album until I saw them live in late 2018. Wow. And it was definitely a perfect live song. It just had strong energy, and the switch up between the first and second verse is just strong, and more songs need to be like that. It's a great song of high energy. This whole album just has a lot of meaning. I remember Losing Control. That what in the release is like when the pre-single is like that just struck home so much. And I know this is a semi-experimental album for Red, and I know a lot of fans didn't necessarily love this album. I know more hated Release the Panic than this, but I know that there was still some mixed feedback with this album. But it personally means a lot to me, even though maybe there's still some songs like Chasing Your Echo that don't necessarily stand out to me as much. It's a very, very listenable album. It's what I call one of those perfect albums that you can just listen from start to finish and feel like it's just a complete project. That it actually just flows really well, and that there's nothing you can skip. Not even Striper's 2018 album has that same impact for me. Despite the fact that I love it a lot, there's a couple songs like Sea of Thieves and Can't Live Without Your Love. Those two songs just I could skip and live without and never hear of again, and I'd be totally okay with that. But Red's album Gone, I could just listen to and just on repeat over and over. I still love this album so much. Definitely, like, it meant more to me probably back then, but at the same time, especially considering the fact that I've been loving Innocence and Instinct more recently. But this album still holds so much meaning to me. I mean, Losing Control, incredible single that surprised me and impacted me, and then it releasing on my birthday and just getting me through a very hard time in my life when I didn't know I was lonely and I needed some companionship of some type, and this album supplied it. And just songs that just have touched me, have blown my mind away, and just been the perfect ambient album, honestly, for me when I needed one. So this album means so much to me. I know some people are going to be like, I can't believe you like this album. But yeah, every single song I could listen through and not skip because it just flows so well as an album. I know some people are even going to disagree with me on that. I will say that some of the deluxe tracks, or at least the remixes, don't stand out as much, but that's okay because they're just remixes. But the two actual bonus songs on the deluxe Mask Slips Away and the Still Alive remix, not necessarily remix, but Looking for a Reason, those two are also very solid, and I kind of wish they kind of made it to the standard. But it's okay, it kind of ends well with Singularity on the standard. But yeah, this is what's impacted me, and this is just what I wanted to share. I love Red, I love this album, and I'm just so thankful. So thankful. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Curious to hear your album of the decade. So if you want to leave a comment, I'd love to hear what you want to say in regards to that. And also, what's your favorite Red album? Um, this is one of mine. Now it's Innocence and Instinct. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good rest of the day, and God bless.